Peace, peace, peace. It's your boy Carlos Parks coming to you again with another Fair Time story. If you follow my page, you probably know enough about me that I don't have to go into details about who I am and what I do and why I do it. So I got another story for y'all. My stories kind of track my progression through federal prison for 17 years, different yards, I think 7-8 different yards. And the stories, the things that I experienced and things I saw. Unlike, like Joe Baker and Bill Feasy, all of their stories are like something. It's like a lot of crazy stories, right? All mine not gonna be crazy. I kind of want to educate you on what it's like in federal prison because it's so different than the state prison systems, right? So I was transferring and I talked about how this guy was killed when I was in Oklahoma. I'm sorry, unalived while I was in Oklahoma transfer center. So from there I go to what we call in federal prison as Bloody Beaumont. So I knew I was being transferred to Bloody Beaumont. It's intimidating to hear the word Bloody Beaumont, right? So when you hear that, you already know it goes down in Beaumont, Texas. It goes down. So I'm going there for the first time. This is my first time really off the East Coast. I was in West Virginia, but that's like right beside the East Coast. So it's considered like Midwest, I guess. I don't know, but this is my first time out of my area, out of the East Coast while incarcerated. I've been to Texas while in the streets, but this is my first time incarcerated there. And I want to kind of paint a picture of my introduction to Bloody Beaumont. So when I come off of the bus, when you come off the bus, when you transfer from one institution to another, you are easily you stand out on the yard because you have on traveling attire that we call bus clothes, right? I'm traveling in my bus clothes. You have your bus clothes, bus shoes, which are just some Bob Barkers, some thin-soled jail shoes, basically. That's what you transfer in. And then you got on bus pants and a t-shirt and or like this bus shirt, like that matches the khakis, right? So that's what you travel in. When you go in the yard, the yard is what you call a train. It's a train. A train is a bunch of new dudes walking on the yard, whether they be handcuffed and shackled, or if they're just walking on the yard, they're coming straight on the yard, they're holding their bedroll, they holding their bedroll and maybe a sack lunch. That's how you come on the yard, right? And you've been traveling all day since early that morning. 2-3 in the morning is when they wake you up to transfer. So you can't wait to get to where your destination is and get a hot shower and go to bed. Like that's what you look forward to. But before all of that, you have to familiarize yourself with your environment. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to get used to where you're gonna be at. So when you walk onto the yard, you're taking a mental picture of everything you see. You're comparing it to what you've seen, what you're used to. Walking on the Beaumont's compound, first thing I noticed was it was hot. And this was in the evening. We walked on the compound in the evening. It was already dark, but it was hot. And it was different. Texas heat is not like other heat, right? And I can't explain the difference, but Texas heat was like dry, right? It was like a different type of heat. And my sensory organ, like I'm sensing all of this with my number one sensory organ, which is your skin. Your skin is your largest organ, right? So I'm sensing all of this, just how it feels. And I'm just looking around at the buildings. It just looked so different. They were brick buildings. Where I left from, they were like cement buildings, right? So they were great. Like at the Beaumont, all the buildings are brick buildings. So they're red, right? Brick red. And it was just aesthetically looked different. It felt different. It looked different. It was different. So when I go into my housing unit, and it was situated like Petersburg, there were 12 housing units. 4, 4, and 4. These are the sections. You got 2 down and then 2 on the up top, right? And I don't remember my housing unit I was in when I first came on the yard at Beaumont. But I think I was on a downstairs unit. I was on a downstairs unit, right? I can't remember the name of my unit. But when I came into the unit, I'm just looking around. They in the day room area. Day room area is where all the TVs are, and everybody's out in the day room watching TV, playing spades, playing chess, checkers, all different types of card games. That's what's going down in the day room area when I walk in. But immediately, everybody turns to look at you and whoever's coming in with you. I came in with a bunch of guys from New Orleans. New Orleans is really close to Beaumont. So these New Orleans guys I had gotten familiar with while we were in the holding cell and all that, right? Just chopping up. You're in the holding cell for hours, and you meeting the people that you're in there with, because we all going on the yard together. So I had gotten kind of cool with all these New Orleans cats. One I remember was PT. He had dreads. And I remember another cat named Doster, right? They called him Doster. His name was Dorian, right? Light-skinned dude with golds in his mouth. So PT and Dorian I had gotten familiar with before walking on the yard. And they was telling me, man, we're going to have a bunch of homies here, homie. You good? Because I'm from Virginia, and we knew that I wasn't going to have any homies on the yard. Not many, if any. But them dudes, they like me. They rock with me. And they was like, look, man, you with us. You know what I'm saying? This is what the New Orleans dudes did, right? They already embraced me when I get there. So we just happened to all be in the same unit. Me, Dorian, PT, and there was enough. Them some dudes from Texas too. I don't recall the dudes from Texas that I got there with. Texas dudes had a slightly different personality than New Orleans dudes. Being from the East Coast is a lot more aggressive, right? And I'm probably more comfortable with aggressive personalities. And these New Orleans dudes were more aggressive, right? The Texas dudes were more chilled. They were more on some player stuff. They were serious now, but they just had a different personality. I don't know, but for some reason, I gravitated to these New Orleans cats. We go in the yard, we all go in together. And when you come into a situation, and they're not strangers anymore because we got to know each other. We basically said we rocking. If anybody, anything happened, like ain't nobody in this car, ain't nobody in this procession a rat. Like we had that verified and understood before we went on the yard. So we all men, we rocking with each other if anything happened. You know what I'm saying? So this is where we was at, right? But anyway, I get in the unit. I go in the unit. I meet my cellie. When I go in the cell, he wasn't in there. They tell me where my cell at. When he come in, it's a black dude. And my cellie was intellectually delayed, right? Meaning he was a little off, just a little off, right? But when he came in to introduce himself, his homie, he was from Texas, he was from San Antonio. So his homies came in behind some dudes from Houston, and they came in and introduced themselves, and they kind of pulled me aside, like, yeah, the little homie, he kind of off. He good dude, good peoples, He just, got a little issue, you know what I'm saying? Like, little kind of not right, but he was cool. He was good. I'm like, oh, no, that's cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, he good. Anyway, introduced myself to them, and, chopping it up with them, and they was some cool dudes. Man, let me know if you need anything, bro. You need some soap or something, get in the shower. They like, where you from? I said, I'm from Virginia. They was like, oh, yeah? They said, man, you ain't got no homies here. He said, nah, it's another dude they call VA in another unit, right? I'm like, all right, I'll meet him tomorrow. They was going to show me the dude, right? But anyway, They give me what I need, yo. Like when you got homies there, your homies give you a care package. I didn't have homies there. So these Texas dudes, one of them name was D, and the other one name was, I think his name was Larry. D was from Houston, and Larry was from, I think, Dallas, right? They was two cool dudes in the unit. It was another dude came see me. These Texas dudes pulled up and checked on me, make sure I was good. So they gave me soap, you know, some soups and stuff, some stuff to snack on, because they know I ain't gonna have my property for a while. And you know, these dudes just looked out. So Texas, my introduction to Beaumont was beautiful. You know what I'm saying? It was cool. So these dudes educate me. They bring me outside into the day rooms. Like, yeah, this is a black TV right here, homie. This is a black TV. This is a Mexican TV. This is a Mexican TV. He said, this is a white TV. This is a sports TV. And this is another white TV, right? This immediately stood out to me because I could tell there were quite a few Mexicans in Texas. It was way more Mexicans than us. But we still had 2 TVs. The Mexicans had 2 TVs. And then there was a sports TV. It was 7 TVs total. Then there was a sports TV, which was basically our TV, right? It was just a way of getting another TV. The blacks would say, oh, this is a sports TV. But it's really us housing another TV. But anyway, then he said these 2 TVs was the white boys' TVs. Now, I have never been anywhere where the white guys get 2 TVs. White guys are a minority in prison, in federal prison especially. There's not a lot of them, right? And then a lot of them are sex offenders. They don't have rights, you know what I'm saying? So the regular guys do, but numerically, they didn't have enough of them in there to warrant having 2 TVs, right? So me, I'm opposed to that. Immediately, I'm like, damn, white boys got 2 TVs in here? He's like, yeah, man, they got 2, man. They, you know, they kind of put their bid down for 1. And I didn't really understand it, but I'm like, all right, okay. Figure that out later, right? My homeboy called me. I ain't talked to him in a while, but I'm gonna finish this, right? This is my homeboy Bird calling me. He's in Pelican Bay. He's got life. He's been locked up 30 years, right? So he's gonna call me back later. I'll let this call go. But anyway, the following day we go out on the yard, and they go show me this dude who they call VA. Turns out this dude VA is from West Virginia. Now, people from Virginia and people from West Virginia are very different. Like, very different. West Virginia, although it is connected and beside Virginia, there isn't a lot of intermingling between the 2 states. West Virginia is more in line with Ohio. The reason why, West Virginia, it borders Ohio on the western side, right? And I think it borders like Maryland, part of Maryland, right? But West Virginia has a Midwestern type of feel, right? I didn't know much about West Virginia. I had never been there until I got incarcerated. Like, and Virginia guys really don't like to be confused with West Virginia. Like, so, like, you can never say, oh, y'all VA cats, and you be talking about West Virginia. They not gonna allow it, right? Because there's only one VA. That's us. West VA is another state, another personality type. So when I found out this dude was from West Virginia, but they was calling him VA, I took exception to that. So when I meet him, I'm like, man, what's up, homie? Where you from? He's like, oh, nah, I'm from West Virginia, homie. So I'm like, you from West Virginia? They told me you was from VA. He's like, nah, I'm from West VA. Yeah, well, you need to tell them that. You know what I'm saying? So that's, I immediately jump on the business, right? Like, because that's disrespectful to us, right? To VA cats, right? That's like disrespectful. Like, so South Carolina and North Carolina are not like that. They cool with each other. So if a dude say he from Carolina, which one? North Carolina or South Carolina? Right? And they're good with it. You know, you never hear nobody say, oh, it's only one Carolina. No, we know that there's a South Carolina and a North Carolina, right? But when it comes to Virginia and West Virginia, there is a strong divide there. I have never been to West Virginia in my life, right? I don't have family in West Virginia. Like, it's just, there's not a connection. Like, Virginia and North Carolina are connected. Virginia and South Carolina are connected, not just by the border of the state, but by the personalities of the people. It's very similar, right? South Carolina people know people in North Carolina and vice versa. Virginia people know people in North Carolina and vice versa, right? Virginia and South Carolina people don't know each other. Like, I promise you, like, that's just how it is, you know, like, I don't know why, but it's just different. So we growing up, we always thought West Virginia was just hillbillies. It's not. You know, that was us we were naive. Like, we were seriously naive. We didn't know. So when I got locked up with West Virginia people, I'm like, damn, these dudes regular. Like, first time being around West Virginia black dudes, man, these dudes like us. They cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, and they can ball. I ain't met a dude from West Virginia yet that couldn't ball. That's one thing they can do. Them dudes ball. I don't know what it is about West Virginia, but for some reason them dudes, they can ball. So yeah, so it was just our ignorance, right, that fueled our position and why we acted like that. But it doesn't change the fact that that's how it was, right? You feel what I'm saying? Like, I'm not advocating, I'm not saying it was cool, I'm not saying it was good, but that's how it was. So Virginia cats kind of had prejudices against West Virginia, and I was one of them. I was the same way. So when I got there, I kind of was like, nah, Slim, you gotta tell them you from West VA. You gotta tell them you from West Virginia. You can't say you from VA. So I'm letting dudes know, like, nah, I'm the only VA dude here. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I'm telling everybody. So me and this West Virginia dude, we didn't get along, and it wasn't because he was from West Virginia. It was because he was perpetrating. You know, he was faking the funk. So, and then I found out he was doing the boys, right? Doing the boys meaning he was messing with punks. So when I found that out, you already know what was next. I go to him, I'm like, look, Slim, you got to make sure you tell everybody you from West Virginia. Like, I don't want people thinking you my homie. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, people not going to couple us in one cut. Like, you know, you might do something and the dude think they got to worry about me coming at them because we homies. Nah, I made sure that whole yard knew I was the only dude from VA at Beaumont. The only one. My homies was from DC. DC and Baltimore dudes was my homies when I was in Beaumont. All right, that was it. That dude from West Virginia, he was a gump. All right, so that was my introduction to him. Now I go to the yard. Let's move on to the yard because I ain't going to hold y'all too much longer. I just want you to understand what my experience was with Bloody Beaumont. There's differences, right? When I go on the yard, these Texas dudes are showing me around. I see my New Orleans boys and stuff. With they people. New Orleans was deep down there. It was a bunch of New Orleans dudes down there. And these dudes, D and L, not Larry. His name wasn't Larry. His name was L. D and L, two initials, right? DL. But anyway, D and L. And it was one other Texas dude. They was all showing me around the yard, right? I'm not really versed in gang life. I don't know nothing about gangs at the time. Absolutely nothing, right? Nothing. I'm naive to gangs. So when we get there, we go in the yard and he's showing me who in what area. Because Texas is segregated. All right, I'm going to go. Texas federal system is segregated. So he was like, this land over here, this area, that's the Mexicans area. He said, this is the Tango Blast area. I'm like, what the fuck is Tango Blast? Them black dudes right there? He was like, nah, them Tango Blast. And I'm looking at these dudes, right? They look like Puerto Ricans or Dominicans to me. They light skin, but they got the, you know, they got the line up like we get our line up. They got the the chin straps and, you know, all that. And they talk, I'm just look, everything out their mouth is, nigga, you tripping. Nigga this, nigga that, you know, that's all they talking. But then he tells me like, nah, homie, them Mexicans. I'm like, huh? He said, yeah, them Mexicans, man. I said, man, them dudes over there, all them dudes Mexicans? He said, yeah, them Tango Blast. So I'm like, what kind of Mexicans is they, right? I never seen no Mexicans like Tango Blast. Tango Blast were different. Never seen no Mexicans like this. So just imagine Mexicans who cut their hair low, like they'll have fades, they'll have even Stevens, like their whole swag was black. Everything about them, right? Like that, like these do. And so what they educated me and they told me, it was like, nah, them niggas grew up with us. They Tango Black. They grew up in Houston, Dallas, ATX, wherever they from. You know, like different areas where they just are. Mexicans and blacks are both raised in poverty, right? So if we're raised together, we adopt a lot of our cultural things, right? So they adapted and adopted a lot of our cultural norms, and a lot of that is how we present ourselves. You know, how we keep our cut. You know what I'm saying? Like they got away from the paisa looking Mexicans where they got the fat mustaches and the hair, and they dress different, they carry themselves different, they speak different. So they are more like us. This was the Tango Blast, and they were a large Mexican group. I think they was the largest group on the yard at the time, right? And there's some history behind that, and I'll talk about that in my next story. But so he went on, he was like, okay, the basketball courts, that's ours. That the basketball courts belong to the blacks, right? So the handball courts are really the Mexicans, but those two right there, those are ours. You know what I'm saying? Like, so mostly Mexicans over there, but these two walls right here belong to us. Soccer field, whose is that? That's the Mexicans. Football field, that's ours. We had 2 baseball diamonds, right? So one baseball diamond, that was where the Tango Blast was at. That was their baseball diamond. The other baseball diamond, right? Like I'm talking about, this is how big the yard is. You got 2 baseball fields, right? The other baseball field over there, I see all these black dudes over there. I'm like, well, whose baseball field is that? He said, oh, that's the Crips. And I was like, the Crips? I look, and it's 40, 50 dudes. I said, man, all them niggas Crips? He said, yeah, them all Crips. He said, it's more Crips here than that. So I'm like, what? Man, never in Petersburg did we have more than 10 gangbangers, right? And we knew, they all sat together, Bloods and Crips. It might have been 5 of each, and they all sat at the same table in the chow hall. They were invisible. You know what I'm saying? Like, they weren't, gangs wasn't in, like big out there on the East Coast. When I was I can only speak for my time, and I was out there in Petersburg from 2002 to 2006. So during that 4 years, I knew one gangbanger, and that was Marcelli. He was a Blood, and he was from Maryland. I'm like, how you a Blood? You from Maryland? Times had changed since I had been inside, right? So gangs had kind of like filtered in. But in Texas, oh, this gangland. It's gangland. It was, but it's so many Crips in Texas, but there were Bloods too. And the Bloods didn't really have a spot. I don't know where the Bloods would be at. It wasn't a lot of them. So I don't know if they was rocking with the Crips. I don't know. But that over there was Crips. That was the Crips. And then we had the smoke huts or something like over there these were Indians, right? Native American Indians, not Indians with the dot, right? They had the smoke something. They call it smokehouse or some shit like that. It was a where they would go over there. It was like a teepee where they would burn stuff. Like I don't know what they was burning in there, but they would burn like all of this stuff, man. Like what's they call that stuff? I don't know what it was they was burning. They'd be in there. It was a smoke lodge. That's what it was. The smoke lodge belonged to the natives, of course, but then you had all these fake natives that was really white. Just they didn't want to go to the smoke lodge because the smoke lodge they would be in there smoking. You know what I'm saying? So, this is after cigarettes were taken out off the institution. So, yeah, you had the smoke lodge. That was their area. The white boys, they had a part of this. Now, I don't know what the white boys had. They had something. They had an area. I think they had like shuffleboards or something like that. They had a little small area. It wasn't a lot of them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't even know if they had an area. If they had, it might have been over by the shuffleboards. They had to have something. They had to have something, right? I don't recall what they had, but they didn't have a large area on that rec yard. If they did have an area at all, they were there. There was some white boys there. They had a group called the Aryan Circle, and they had a group called the Aryan Brotherhood, and they didn't like each other. And then they had another group called the Dirty White Boys, right? They had the Dirty White Boys, and they had some other boy. They called them Peckerwoods, but they would just go by Woods. Yeah, they got white gangs, and these white gangs don't like each other. Like, you would think that the Aryans and the white gangs would be against the black gangs. Nah. The black gangs are against other black gangs. The white gangs are against other white gangs, and the Mexican gangs are against other Mexican gangs. That's how it is in there. Yeah, it's the weirdest shit. You feel what I'm saying? Like, it's weird, right? But that's what it was. And I learned, you know, where I could be, where it was safe, what you had to watch out for, and all of that, right? And at that time is when I told them, I'm like, yeah, I speak Spanish too. And them niggas perked up. They said, man, you speak Spanish? I said, yeah. They said, you Spanish? Because my name Carlos. I'm like, nah, I ain't Spanish. I ain't Latino. But I learned the language. I started learning before I came here. Ironically, I learned Spanish in Petersburg before I went to Texas. And when I was going to Texas, I was like, man, it's a good thing I learned Spanish. So now I ended up becoming the spy on the yard for whenever the Mexicans had a big meeting, because we wanted to make sure that the meeting wasn't about us, you know, because they could have been making a move, planning a move. Every time something happened, they planned this stuff. But I'll save that for my next story. You've been listening to Fair Time Stories with Carlos Parks. Peace.